The one, the only, the classic Halloween.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Michael?
Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. I think he'll come back.
Exploring uncharted territory.
And totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure.
The only reason she babysits is to have...
Halloween.
Okay,
Come on out. Halloween. The night he came home.
Hello everyone and welcome to a special episode of Heroic Purgatory, an Asian cinema podcast. My name is John and with me as always is my co-host Jason. Jason, how are you doing today?
Tommy, Halloween night. It's when people play tricks on each other. It's all make-believe. I think John Carpenter was just trying to scare you.
I've never been tricked nor have I ever tricked anyone, so I question the truth value of your statement. But anyway, as you pointed out, today it's been a while, I guess I should say that, but we're coming back by talking about Halloween from 1978, directed by John Carpenter. So let's jump straight into the discussion. Jason, do you want to introduce the film for us?
Okay, so following the release of Assault on Precinct 13 in 1976, John Carpenter was handed the idea of a film about babysitter murders that take place over Halloween night, and a budget of $300,000. Together with Deborah Hill, who John met on Assault on Precinct 13, the two wrote the legendary slasher movie Halloween. The team cast Jamie Lee Curtis, daughter of superstar couple Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, star of proto-slasher film Psycho from 1960, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Jamie Lee Curtis was a struggling actress at the time, and she was desperate for any role that she can get, including this low-budget horror film. The low budget meant that the crew had to use a small cast who weren't paid highly. Jamie Lee Curtis received $8,000 for her performance. Donald Pleasance earned the most, with $20,000. They had a limited amount of locations and a 4-week shoot. And clothes, props, and vehicles were sourced from whatever was at hand or could be bought cheap. So, the leaves that we see falling from the trees, they are actually collected in a bag at the end of each scene, so they could be used again. And production designer, art director, location scout, and co-editor Tommy Lee Wallace, he actually created the trademark mask worn by Michael Myers throughout the film from a Captain Kirk mask purchased for $1.98 from a costume shop on Hollywood Boulevard. From such humble origins came Halloween, a film that codified the tropes of slasher films, while acting as a transition point between older horror movies with ghosts and ghouls to a wave of Hollywood-inspired serial killer slashers like Friday the 13th, My Bloody Valentine, Sleepaway Camp, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Burning, and 2 Jamie Lee Curtis flicks like Terror Train and Prom Night, as she almost became typecast, something that she was desperate to avoid in her career. Back to Halloween. It became a word-of-mouth hit and won a whole bunch of, well, it won one notable award, Los Angeles Film Critics Awards in 1979, a New Generation Award for John Carpenter. In 1979 for the Saturn Awards, it was a nominee for Best Horror Film. More recently, at the Online Film and Television Association Awards, it was inducted into the Hall of Fame. 2023 for the character category, Laurie Strode was the winner, and in 2019 it was Best Picture. It's been the subject of many sequels and remakes: Halloween 2 in 1981, Halloween 3 Season of Witch in 1982, Halloween 4 The Return of Michael Myers in 1988, Halloween 5 The Revenge of Michael Myers in 1989. In the 90s you had Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers in 1995, Halloween H2O 20 years later in 1998, and Halloween Resurrection in 2002. Then you've got the Rob Zombie movies, which give backstory to legendary serial killer Michael Myers, Halloween in 2007 and Halloween 2 in 2009, and more recently David Gordon Green's continuation of the franchise with Halloween in 2018, Halloween Kills in 2021, and Halloween Ends in 2022.
Are those the ones where Jamie Lee Curtis comes back?
Yeah, she comes back. She's an older lady, and she's battling Michael Myers. She actually comes back in the 90s as well.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Halloween H2O. And, yeah. I suppose, can we spoil? How many Halloween films have you actually watched, John?
Just the first 2.
Just the first 2? Okay, I won't spoil it. I was going to give a major spoiler. Oh no! It's mentioned in the second one. Okay, spoiler alert. Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is actually the sister of Michael Myers.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They are fated to battle each other.
They reveal it in the second one, which I'm not sure how I feel about it, but
I'd like the franchise to continue. So,
well, I read that it's a lot of fans thought it was like kind of took the franchise in a direction that sort of like they try to untangle for a long time. Although I don't know, I'm neither a fan nor someone who's even seen the franchise, so I can't speak for anyone else.
Yeah, it's either the sort of sibling rivalry, I suppose you could say, or it's the themes of what Halloween stands for. That's what the franchise has picked up over the years. Or Michael Myers' backstory as well.
Yeah, well, I would have. So, the thing, I mean, and I'm going to spoil the show by saying that I really like the first film. Well, I like a lot about the first. I liked a lot about the first. I mean, I think that the thing that makes the first film work is that Mike Myers is not a real person. He's a symbol. He represents something. What that something is, I think there can be a lot of debate about it. But he's not really a real person. That's why he can't die. And giving that sort of like an idea, the concept that he represents a real backstory is maybe diminishes it. Although again, I haven't seen any of it, so I don't know. Like, and I don't know that I will, but maybe if I'm bored one time. But I also would have liked the idea that Carpenter sort of like wanted, which was represented by the third film, which is a completely different story, which I haven't seen, but I read. I did my. We do a lot of hard work to put this podcast out, so I did my research, and like the third film is unrelated to Mike Myers, and I think that's what Carpenter wanted. He wanted the Halloween franchise not to be about Mike Myers. He wanted every film, or maybe every couple of films or something, to be about something else, like a different scary story revolving around Halloween, but not like a one long series about the same character.
Yeah, I marathoned Halloween 1 through 3 a few days ago, and I actually found quality diminishes as you go along in the franchise. Halloween 3 was really difficult to get through, and I was quite surprised because it's written by Nigel Neal, and he's the guy that did Quatermass Experiments. And I've talked highly about like stories he's written in the past. So I was quite surprised that it wasn't as gripping to me as it could have been. Perhaps there was studio interference in the story. I'm not sure. I think it was an unhappy time for Nigel Neal on the production.
And I think Carpenter was involved as a producer, and I don't think he was involved after that, other than maybe in like name only. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is John Carpenter's Halloween. Both he and Deborah Hill were also a producer on the second one, and I think it's quite notable that
they were writers on the second one as well.
Writers as well, yeah. So they blow up Michael Myers, don't they? So it's kind of like, they've created this big horror icon and like, hey, we're done with it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was the intention, and I would have, as you say, maybe the third film was disappointing, but. And that's why they went back to Michael Myers, of course, because it's it was maybe as a business decision it was justified. I don't know, but I think that was the intention of the creators, was that the story of Michael Myers is done. We'll tell another story about something equally horrific in like that revolves around the themes of Halloween, but they tried that, it didn't go well, and then they moved on back to Michael Myers. But I do wonder if Carpenter sort of like believed in this idea, maybe he should have directed the third film, should have been more involved, and then try to make the franchise that he wanted like a reality by directing it. And maybe he would have gone that direction. Although I also from like just purely a like commercial success, I don't see the French, because Mike Myers in the first movie, maybe in the second one as well, he was such a what do you call it? Such an iconic villain that it would have been hard to see like just an anthology series, which basically what Carpenter wanted to succeed. Although I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to at the time. This was John Carpenter's sort of biggest. Like he'd worked on with bigger budgets, but this was his biggest success. Like it was made on a budget of $300,000 and it earned $70 million, and it allowed him to get into studio pictures.
Yeah, but it's also like it was still fairly early in his career.
Oh yeah, definitely early.
Well, it was like his third.
Yeah, this was
third, right? Full.
Is it? I want to say Dark Star Assault on Precinct 13. And he was writing screenplays like The Eyes of Laura Mars.
But as a director.
Yeah, his third as a director.
Yeah, so pretty early. And I don't think Dark Star was like a student film, right? And,
yeah.
Go ahead.
That had involvement from Dan O'Bannon, didn't it? From Alien.
I don't remember. Like Assault on Precinct 13, which I actually also like. I like all early Carpenter, most of early Carpenter. It was not a big budget movie either, so it's not like maybe he had a bigger budget than this. I don't know, but
yeah, I have to look up the budget.
I don't remember. But have you seen, just as because I was actually curious about this. Have you seen the Rob Zombie remake? Because those are technically remakes, right, of the first two Halloweens. I
think remakes also backstory. I haven't actually seen them.
Oh, okay.
I heard, I kind of grew tired of slasher movies, and I feel like going into, demystifying Michael Myers is not an interesting sort of route to take the character.
I have known people who say these are really good versions, but I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about Rob Zombie as a director. I think he's a little bit too gratuitous. Although I do think that some of his first two films, like the House of a Thousand Corpses. What was it? The first couples that he got famous for in the early 2000s.
That does sound like it's correct. The House of a Thousand Corpses. I think that's one of them.
And The Devil Rejects. So I do think there are House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil Rejects, which sort of like related. And then I think those were relatively successful movies. And there are some interesting stuff there. But
yeah.
And then he did The Munsters recently, which is weird for him. But those were interesting. Like there was some interesting things there, even though I do think he's a little bit too gratuitous. So I can definitely see him completely like off the reins in the Halloween. But I've also heard from people, and this is personal chat, like horror fans, that say that they do like the Rob Zombie Halloweens, although I don't know to what extent, to what kind of like that is.
Yeah. I just want to say, just checked on Wikipedia, Assault on Precinct 13 was made for $100,000.
Yeah, so pretty low.
Yeah. I think, like, Rob Zombie, with his reputation for gratuitousness, perhaps that was, like, a different way of taking Halloween compared to Carpenter's original.
Well, I mean, I would argue that even, of course, and that's, who knows how Carpenter would have done if he had a bigger budget, right? Because, like, the second one, the violence, right, is amped up, like, right away.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the level of Rob Zombie, but it's definitely, like, a step up from the first one.
It's a lot more sadistic as well.
Yeah. Is this, and another question before we get into the plot, is this Carpenter's only film with a female lead?
Starman?
I haven't seen Starman. I should probably watch that. I can't think, like, certainly his most famous ones are very, not only not female-led, but very male-centric movies, for lack of a better term. Like, you have Precinct 13. There you go, like a very masculine movie. You have The Thing, a bunch of men in Antarctica, right? You have They Live.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Trouble in Little China, also a very masculine movie. They Live, right?
Yeah.
Another very masculine, like there's a famous fight that is a very macho fight in that movie. You have what else?
Let's see. In the Mouth of Madness with Sam Neill.
Also, no, and I wouldn't say it's a masculine movie, but there's certainly like a male lead. In that movie. So The Fog, I've seen The Fog. Escape from New York with Snake Plissken, also another very masculine movie.
Yes.
I have not seen Christine, so I don't know about that.
Oh, that's a good one.
But is that male-led or female-led?
That is male-led. There's a strong female character, but it's more about, I think, I've heard the term toxic masculinity used, and I would agree with that.
And I'm not necessarily criticizing, but there's definitely and this could be satire, so I'm not necessarily, this could be John Carpenter satirizing, but there was also hints in this film, in Halloween. I wrote down, this film contains certain things that would expect someone who has never written female characters to write.
That's interesting, because...
You know what I mean? Go ahead. No, say your thing.
No, Deborah Hill co-wrote this, and she's credited as writing a lot of the dialogue, making the teenage girls quite believable. And I've heard a lot of praise for the female characters. This is a very female-driven film.
It is, but we can talk about the sexuality in this film. And yeah, like I said, I am fully willing to accept that it is satire, but no, there are some weird dialogue choices, like, for example, Laurie having the whole character of she's too smart for boys to like her. Like, that's I don't know. I found that a weird line in general. Like she even says specifically, like, "Oh, I'm too smart and I drive boys away," or like there's constantly jokes at her expense of how she drives boys away when we see her being played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who it was a very beautiful woman being like the actor. So there's like that whole disconnect. Like maybe they had envisioned a different actress. I don't want to like go down that route, but it just that there was a lot of aspects to this film that felt like awkward moments or awkward characterization.
So did you think that these characters were sort of archetypal, that you had the sort of good girl and then the sort of more free-spirited girls who engage in sex and then end up getting punished?
Well, I think to me that part, yes, but to me that part is more obviously a satire.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure, but because satire, like unlike any other, genre, requires to know the intention, right? The intention of the creator. But to me, I would read that aspect of it more closely to as satire. But yeah, so that's a big film, and that I think that's a big part of the film, and I think what Michael Myers sort of represents, even though I don't necessarily have it down exactly, and I don't necessarily know that there is a one single thing, but it's definitely something to do with the relationship between toxic masculinity and the way femininity is perceived, or like the relationship between men and women, and how that relationship is perhaps not always healthy. And I don't know, something like that. We can debate it further down the road.
Yeah. I think we're kind of on the same wavelength with this, because with my rewatch, like when I first watched it as a young teen, I kind of just took it in horror terms. Now with more experience in life, having a better understanding of the characters, more experience in the world, I could see what you're seeing.
Yeah, but it's not universally open, because there are many people who find this aspect of the film, and we should probably start the plot soon, but just to say this one thing, that they find it exploitative rather than satirical. And there is a sense of... Okay. I mean, I think there is an argument to be made for can satire be also exploitative? Like, can you show something meaning to be satirical, but it's also exploitative at the same time?
So it's kind of like a have your cake and eat it.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's situation. Exactly right. That's exactly right. Like I'm like the same weird film that was kind of like Tarantino is always like criticized for this. Like he condemns violence, but he glorifies violence in his films and things like that. And the Schindler's List is another film that weirdly gets lumped in this category, because it's a film condemning the violence of the Holocaust, but it's also a very beautiful film. It's a very visually like appealing film. It's a very entertaining film, so to speak.
Yeah. I think we may touch upon it later, but Black Christmas is an interesting comparison.
Okay. I have not seen it, so I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, let's so the film starts with the jack-o'-lantern in a sort of like dark, which is very iconic, and with the John Carpenter composed music. And I think John Carpenter knew he had a hit, because he uses that music a lot in the film.
Yeah, key moments when characters introduced, like Michael Myers, the theme plays, and like shivers up and down the spine. Kind of like this theme is gold.
Yeah, and it's one of the most recognizable themes in like the history of cinema, right?
Yeah, it's was it Dan Curtis? Oh no, Adam Curtis. He uses it in his political documentaries. Like he'll have Tony Blair walking into a scene with music from John Carpenter. Yeah. Maybe Halloween, maybe Assault on Precinct 13. But yeah, it's an iconic piece of music that I think like generations are familiar with.
It's used. I've seen it like all kinds of like contexts. Like it's so overused, like all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get in the beginning of the film, after the intro titles, we have an introduction to Michael Myers through his point of view, committing his first crime. And for as you pointed out in the spoilers, he kills the first sister, and then later he comes to kill out the other sister. Is it ever explained in the franchise why he's going after the sisters?
I've only ever watched the first three in Halloween H2O, so no, maybe it's just a psychic connection, and we're kind of left to guess why he's going after the sisters. And I've heard different theories, such as like the first sister he killed, he was like sexually abused by, or maybe his mother, and he's kind of displaced his feelings onto like his other sisters and various other women he murders.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if there is a reason why other than the guy's just evil.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the Doctor makes that point. Like for 90% of the film, the Doctor's only role is to keep saying how evil Mike Myers is, and then in the very last, he has like a crucial part that he plays. It's kind of like the same thing in the second film as well.
Is that a good psychiatrist? That patient's evil. There's no way of getting through to him.
Yeah. Again, I know, but if we don't take Mike Myers to be a real person, which I don't think we should, then I think it makes a little bit more sense. It's a little bit more excusable. But no, absolutely, yeah. So if in a real world, there are many. I mean, the film makes it, jumping away from this first scene, which I actually do want to talk about it, but jumping away from a little bit, like I think the film makes it abundantly clear, and even explicitly so, that Mike Myers is not a real person, and there are many things that he shouldn't be able to do that he does. Like the one thing obviously is that he can't die, but he killed his sister at 6, and then he was like locked up in a mental institution for like the rest of his life with presumably, and not even presumably, I think they say this, very little exposure to other people under the Doctors, almost no education. Like I doubt he got much education in there. It was probably pumped full of drugs the entire time. In fact, the Doctor even says something like that at one point. And yet he escapes. He's able to trick people like right away, and he knows how to drive a car, and knows how to how to cut telephone lines, and how to disable cars. Like he should be, not to be crude, but he should be a moron with the life that he's led. But he's somehow like hyper intelligent and ultra capable in everything that he attempts.
Yeah, I think the filmmakers do know this, because you'll have one of the characters questions Donald Pleasance, who's the Doctor, like, how did he manage to drive away in a car? And Donald Pleasance is like, he did so very well. Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember the exact quote.
No, yeah, exactly.
But,
yeah, they have this discussion as well, and like the Doctor even makes a reference to how he's always pumped full of drugs or something, and like he's always in a room just watching to the wall. Like they make this point. Like he should not. Like I said, again, sorry to be vulgar, but he should be a moron, like in real life.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's not.
He's something supernatural.
Yeah, and they gotta go. I don't want to. That like the one thing that I also don't want to do is. What's the word I'm doing is
preempt.
Like no I'm trying to searching for the right word, but I don't want to generalize about sort of like mental illness, because like you said, like if this was the real world, that he would not be a good psychiatrist. And even if there is like a tiny fraction of people who are truly evil, which that's a simplification, like that's not how like a good psychiatrist would treat them. But this is, again, I'm speaking only in the sense that like he's not a real person. He represents something.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do you think of that point of view shot that the movie starts with?
I think it's incredible, because it's like a very long take that's unbroken, and you got in-camera tricks like the putting on of the mask, and if I remember correctly, I think you can see Deborah Hill's hand pick up objects, and you can see moments where the camera goes in and out of focus. Oh,
that's Deborah Hill?
Yeah. Her hand to the side picking up the knife.
I did not know that.
There's like the iconic synth music as well, which really heightens the tension. So it's super atmospheric. I really thought like gets the audience into the mood and builds up Michael Myers as a character. Like, great start to the film.
Yeah. Although I do want to point out that there is the film Peeping Tom starts in an almost identical way. And I'm almost certain that Carpenter would have been aware of that. So I just want to point out that it's not entirely an original idea. It's still very well executed.
Yeah, I think Halloween wasn't the first slasher film, but like I said in the intro, it kind of codified all the tropes.
Yeah.
And I think there are callbacks to other films, or maybe connections that audiences who've watched things like Peeping Tom or Deep Red or Black Christmas will, be able to make. Yeah.
I also think, a minor point, but there is obviously like the idea of women who have sex get punished in this film. And we see his sister with her boyfriend going upstairs, and we're always like this. It's essentially an uninterrupted shot of the brother. And like the brother goes around, enters from the back door, grabs the knife, and goes to the stair. And then we see the boyfriend kind of coming down. Presumably they've had sex. And like the whole thing happened in like 30 seconds, which I think is like I think Carpenter is like joking there, is like trying to poke fun.
It's kind of like adult me was like, no, that's too, what? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That must be disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think... I think that's just a little bit of humor inserted there by Carpenter.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, like I think obviously, and you can tell the low budget because there's no cuts on the body of the sister. It's just like a little bit of red paint.
And really horrible sound effects. Just the sound of the knife being plunged into flesh, just awful.
Which I don't mind. Like, I don't mind the quality of the sound effects. They're like, I think it goes with like the crudeness of the movie and the subject.
No, awful as in really effective. I was like wincing.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, really effective. I was just wincing at every.
Yeah. And after that, of course, we get Donald Pleasance driving a car, and then we get like a lot of exposition about Mike and how he's like. The doctor is like, apparently Mike has a hearing coming soon, about to decide like if he is going to get transferred or something.
Yeah, this is great build up.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about the drugs earlier. Like, I think it was Thorazine. Like,
yeah.
The nurse says he'll barely be able to sit up, and Donald Pleasance is like, that's the idea. So,
yeah.
Like, yeah, he's going to be doped up. Non-verbal. And we hear that he hasn't spoken a word in 15 years. I'm kind of like 1960s and 70s, there are a whole host of psychological treatments. Surely there were non-verbal ones available. You're not a very good psychiatrist, Dr. Lewis.
No, but again, like I said, I don't think he's there to be a psychiatrist. I think, like I said, 99% of the film he's there to just give us exposition about Mike Myers.
And Donald Pleasance is such a great actor. Like, he's got such great gravitas that even when he's hysterical, you're kind of like really swayed by what he's saying. We got to get this evil dude.
Yeah. I think he kind of sells it by how often he gets scared. Like, this later on, but everything like seems to scare him.
You're not taking this seriously. I'm the only one that sees the threat. But I love this intro where you have this exposition, you're building up Mike Myers, and you're seeing light reflected off white objects, rain-swept streets and the rain, and then the gowns of the escaped hospital patients, and the theme of Halloween starts playing, and Michael Myers makes his first appearance, and this is where he steals the car. And when he steals the car, he terrorizes the nurse inside it. His hand plunges into the window, and that reminded me of a shot in Black Christmas where the bad dude is chasing the main character towards the end. There's a really effective jump scare in that film. I feel like, it reminded me of Black Christmas, that jump scare. Black Christmas was made something like, I want to say 5 years earlier. Halloween.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know if this is interesting or maybe it doesn't, but it's interesting that he doesn't actually kill the nurse. Like, he seems hell bent on just escaping. And then I think this is a curious thing. Like if even later when he seems to want to go after his sister, he stops to kill other characters. But in this scene, he wants to escape. He doesn't stop to kill the nurse. I don't know if that was just like if there's anything there, or it was just he just wanted to get away or something. But I noted that down.
Yeah, it's not Halloween night, so maybe it has to be on Halloween. He's recreating the original kill. The nurse is an older woman, so if he's recreating the older kill, it makes sense that he's going after teenage babysitters.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, I think this is where sort of like theorizing that maybe the sister did something to him in his past, and so he's so traumatized that he has to do it again and again. Yeah, which is a very sort of crude way of looking at how abuse becomes a sort of cycle.
Yeah. But yes, there's also a scene. It's because it cuts back and forth, and we'll get to Laurie. But there's a scene where the Dr. Loomis, finds a truck. Do you know what that's about?
I think he sees the hospital, he sees the hospital. He's on his way to Haddonfield, and it's him tracking Michael Myers. He sees a truck. He sees the gown that Michael Myers is wearing on the truck, and he sees a box of matches which the nurse had earlier in the film. So he's made the connection. Okay, I'm on the right path. Michael Myers is on his way to Haddonfield.
What I don't understand is why Michael Myers would stop to just kill some guy on a truck. That's what I don't understand.
Change disguises. He's wearing the guy's work overalls.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, there you go. That goes he's way too smart for someone who spent 15 years locked up in a room staring at a wall. But anyway,
maybe nurses were reading detective fiction out loud while they were handing him his pills.
That would make sense. Yeah. But anyway, then we get introduced to Laurie and her friends, and we see her doing various things, going to school, dropping keys off or something. And the whole time, Mike Myers seems to be watching her from a distance. Occasionally, she sees him too, but everybody thinks she's paranoid. And this is where, a lot of the film is watching people walk around in an American suburb.
Yeah, you've got a lot of wide shots, and you're very much aware of the environment. And Michael Myers is popping up at different places, and kind of be, as a viewer, being hyper aware of the voyeuristic aspect, and also the way the suburbs can be a place where threats can hide. We're also introduced to these teenage girls who are exploring their sexuality, and you could say they're kind of naive in the way that they handle seeing Michael Myers multiple times, but not alerting anybody, not to victim blame or anything. But yeah, this is kind of the most powerful part of the film. Is the vulnerability of these teenage girls and how the world views them. Like you said, there's something about masculinity in the way men view women in this section of the film.
Well, talking about the suburbs, aside from any symbolism, which I think there is for the suburbs, it's also very effective as a horror tool because as a horror device, because an audience watching this in 1978, they're thinking this is just like the neighborhood that I live in. Yeah. This is like my quiet, safe suburban life, and this is exactly like that. Because let me tell you something, while cities differ from each other, all suburbs look essentially the same, having lived in America for a long time. Well, maybe that's not true, but to me at least, on big picture, all suburbs look the same. And it's certainly, I don't think I'm the first one to kind of point this kind of sameness of the suburban life, but there is it's definitely, watching this film, someone who lives on the suburb, which is, a lot of people, especially a lot of, middle class and upper middle class people, seeing this and like, this is just like my neighborhood. This is just like where I go every day. This is just like where my kids, my sister, my parents, whatever, walk like safely without like a worry in the world. Like I said, there's certain naivety because that's what the suburbs promise to the American life. It's a certain uniformity, certain conformity, and certain safety. And Carpenter is saying something that Lynch would say later, almost a decade later. Like maybe that's not true. There is a seedy underbelly that hides underneath that is sort of like an integral part of our society that we have disguised because we think we've surrounded ourselves with this cushion of safety and upper middle classness. I don't know, whatever. I'm rambling a bit, but there's definitely something there.
Would you say the suburbs were a sort of response? Are people like fleeing what they perceive to be the sort of crime of the city?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people will analyze the suburbs as with a racial component, which is absolutely true. But I definitely also think it's it's also not the entire picture. Like, I think the primary drive for the suburbs is economic. Like, people coming back from the war, they need houses. They can afford houses because of all the social reforms that were happening at the time. And where is cheap land? Certainly not in the city. Cheap land exists outside the city or surrounding the city, and that's where people move to.
I think this was a time period where there was underinvestment in the inner cities and more investment in the suburbs. And like, I can imagine an audience relating to the sort of safety of the suburbs being subverted by John Carpenter, just finding it really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, as a horror device, it was a brilliant idea.
This was also a time period where you did have serial killers becoming more infamous in
publicized
public
yes.
discourse. Yeah, sort of like Ed Gein, who inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all sorts of horrible characters. And you had like the emergence of sort of like television news, which would go into like urban centres and report on crime and maybe underreport the crimes that are going on in the suburbs.
Yeah, like I think the 70s were like the time where you started to have, I mean, television had been around, but you started to have more than one channel, right? You started to have like a little bit of variety, and you had a little bit of like, well, even the news now, they have to compete for ratings, kind of like mentality that was like starting to show. So you definitely have these sensationalized stories of serial killers, because serial killers were already existed for longer, but like they didn't suck up as much public oxygen as they were starting to do at this point.
Yeah, if it bleeds, it leads. And like the sort of news media chasing crimes, good for ratings, but also alters people's perceptions.
Yeah. I mean, the movie Network came out 2 years before this in 1976. So that was definitely like this idea, this criticism of like public media news was definitely in the zeitgeist.
Yeah. It's I think it's an idea that's sort of nascent in Halloween too, because would you agree? Because the news media are present, but it's not well developed.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have the like a reporter, but it's such a minor point. Like they kind of disappear after a while, and then they show up at the end where they try to interview everyone, and they're trying to interview Laurie at the end of Halloween 2. But it's also like this is much later, and maybe the point is already been made all the time. But you have that in the Scream franchise. One of the characters is a news reporter, and then she ends up writing a book. The character that is from Friends,
Courtney Cox.
Yeah. Like I think she's a reporter at the beginning. She's like an independent reporter or something like that. And she's like always running around trying to get like the juicy story. And I think Scream, for all its faults, it's definitely criticizing like both the genre and also whatever inspired the genre.
And we're now living through an age where social media is doing the exact same thing. We're sensationalizing things and changing people's perspectives, so we're all a lot more fearful of each other.
Absolutely.
And the environments we live in.
Yes, absolutely. So it's almost like a progression that starts around this time, and it's simply amplified by both social changes, but also technological changes once the internet shows up. Okay. So anyway, like we have Laurie walking around, like a lot of shots of Laurie and friends walking around the suburbs and etc. There is one thing I want to mention about sort of like the scary. There was an interview that John Carpenter did, and I saw this of all places in an interview that he did about Night of the Living Dead.
Because that's actually used in Halloween, isn't it? It's on the television that the kids are watching.
It's in the second Halloween. The first Halloween, they see the Thing.
Yes, you're right. It's at the beginning of the film, the second one, where Michael Myers goes into the older couple's
Yes,
house.
he's watching
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. But I was like, it was on TV. There was like the Night of the Living Dead series, and like Mike Myers was sort of like an introductor, like a host, explaining. No, Mike Myers. I mean Carpenter. Sorry, John.
Okay.
John Carpenter. Said Mike Myers.
Mike, you're a horror fan too.
Yeah. So I was watching. It was like I used to watch these on TV all the time because I love hearing like directors, and he was talking about like he was there. There was like a commercial break, and then John Carpenter shows up in the middle of the film. I'm pretty sure this was the first Night of the Living Dead because I didn't see the other ones. Like I don't like the other movies so much, but the first one I really enjoyed. And
sacrilege.
Well, we can talk about that another day. But he just like in the middle of the film just shows up and then talks about how great Romero was, and then like stops and then starts talking about Halloween because why not? And he was talking about how he just, without even doing anything, he said like he didn't want to force like the scare. He said he just wanted to like have things that scared, like that he found interesting imagery that was scary. Like he would say he would find the weirdest looking trees in the neighborhood that he was filming, and he would just have his characters walk by them. So like they would have the camera just in front of a tree, and the characters would sort of like walk by, and like the weirdest looking tree. Like if a tree had like a twisted bark, or if it had like a cuts or something like that, he would like pick that spot and put it on camera just because he found that like weirdly fascinating and scary. And it was just like, there's a lot of this film. There's a lot of like shots that have like this eerie quality about them. Maybe scary is the wrong word, but definitely like this sort of like adjacent scary type of feeling.
Like he's got a great eye for it because like first hour of the film is just building suspense with Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis hyping up Mike Myers and John Carpenter, making the environment that he's going to be lurking around really scary. Well, not scary. Perilous, I suppose, because you're kind of aware of just how all these open spaces and all these places that he can hide and he pops up in. And yeah, it's just really unnerving to see him. And then you get that final 30 minutes where all the fireworks start.
Yeah, and this film constantly trains you to keep an eye on the background, on like the out of focus areas of the screen for like any silhouettes that might pop out. Yeah,
when they're driving in the car, you can see Mike Myers' brown car following.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the best scare for you in this moment then, or the most tense bit?
I think in the hand on the window at the beginning when he smashes the window, that was definitely like a top three maybe. What else? I don't know. Like the film is not like a jump scare scary. It's more like a quietly building up scary.
Yeah, there's something out of place in the environment, and we're aware of it.
Yeah.
As an audience,
I think definitely when like she stabs him and then for some reason throws the knife away, like when she's in the closet and she's like whimpering, and like she like first of all like she stabs him in the eye with like the clothes hanger thingy.
That's a knitting needle.
Well, that's earlier, the knitting needle.
Okay,
like, I'm talking about later when she's in the closet. and she fashions...
Oh, the clothes hanger.
The
Yeah,
clothes
yeah,
hanger.
yeah.
Yeah, she fashions like a needle out of that and stabs him in the eye, then grabs his knife and stabs him. And then for some reason decides to like walk past him and throw the knife away when he can just get like within like reaching distance from him. Like, keep the knife, lady. But when then he gets back up, like the anticipation that, yes, you know he's going to get back up. She sends the children away to call for the police, and she just waits there. Like, that anticipation, that was also like a top moment.
Oh man, I was totally mad during that whole sequence, but we'll get to that later.
But I mean, we're getting to that because, you know, like we see, like I said, like a lot of the middle film is Laurie just building the tension as Laurie walks around, and constantly we get shots of Mike follows them or watching them from a distance. She occasionally sees them, intercutting with like the doctor and the sheriff kind of investigating, which again, these scenes are mostly exposition. The doctor's...
But it's really well handled because the characters pass by each other, so you're getting like Laurie and her world being built up, and she'll meet the sheriff with her friends.
Yeah.
And then they'll drive off, and then the doctor will be introduced, and all the while Michael Myers is lurking in the background. So it's this constant sort of like all these strands being interwoven together till it gets to the finale.
Yeah.
It's
And
really well handled.
It feels like sort of like this is such a small community, but yet it feels like for the most of the film, the doctor and the sheriff are like so far away and so in the dark of what's happening to the girls.
Yeah. Like a lot of adults, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
When they've got teenagers.
That's true. Well, I guess one criticism that I would get to this, and as like I said, we're building to the final scene, the final crescendo, which is Annie which is Laurie's friend. They go to to their respective babysitting jobs, which are on like the houses that are on like opposing sides of the same street. Basically, and then like their friend Linda joins later, so it's essentially these three girls that we're talking about. But yeah, so we have this, but we get like on their way, we get the information that the sheriff is Annie's father.
Yeah.
And we never get, then she dies, obviously, and the father is in the dark for the entire film. Of that, we never get that sort of like emotional closure in the first film, like of his father finding out that his daughter died. That seems like it would be a big moment, but it's not really, doesn't happen in this film. It happens in the second film, and maybe you could argue that this was always like a 2-film plan because the second film begins right when the first film stopped. But even in the second film, it's so little. Like the whole thing happens in like 10, 20 seconds. Like he finds out, he curses the doctor and says, I gotta go tell my wife. And then he leaves. Yeah. And that's it. Like that's all that emotional payoff of him losing his daughter is just handled in 20 seconds. And it's not handled at all in the first film, and it's handled so briefly in the second film. So that would be one criticism that I have of the film, maybe of the first 2 films in general.
Do you think this is a victim of John Carpenter being a really efficient filmmaker and just focusing on the sort of female stories?
Maybe that could be it. That could be it, that they just ran out of budget. And like this film is a tight 90 minutes. And it seems to me, from what you said and from what I've read, that they could not... Maybe they shot exactly what they needed to shoot. Like, it's hard... who's the actor that plays the sheriff? Whose name is Lee Brackett, by the way, who's like a famous writer.
Let me look at the cast list.
Like, I'm wondering, is he
Charles Cyphers?
Is he like a famous one that
I've never heard of him before, Charles Cyphers.
Okay. Because he's also not in the second film, because like first of all, I want to say Donald Pleasance does a good job in the second film, but both the sheriff and Jamie Lee Curtis the whole time, they look like they don't want to be there. I don't know if you got the same impression, but especially the sheriff, he looks like he doesn't want to be there, and maybe that's why he was like had such a brief time in the second film.
I kind of like Jamie Lee Curtis. She was desperate for film roles, and she kind of, from what I've read and heard, like she kind of felt out of place on set, and it might have been because she came from sort of celebrity background and she was a struggling actress at the time. and she was just sort of trying to define herself. As for the sheriff, I think her performance is really good as a sort of gangly, normal teenage girl. Like she's beautiful, but she's also like uncertain of herself. That like her physicality is really kind of reserved, and she's not as flamboyant as the other female characters. The sheriff, he kind of struck me as being like a lot of small town sheriffs, like who encounter someone from the big city and kind of like skeptical at first, and okay, I'll just go along with this because it's my job. I'm not sure if this is the right way of doing things.
Do you know? Also, speaking of the sheriff, just a little bit of trivia. Do you know who Lee Brackett was? Like the namesake?
No, I don't.
So Lee Brackett was a female science fiction author from the 30s and the 40s. Was one of the few female science fiction author at the time. Was openly female, I guess. And then she went on to write for Hollywood. She wrote a bunch of movies for in collaboration with Howard Hawks. Yeah. And her last. And she continued to write also novels and stuff at the same time. And her last work right before she died in Hollywood was the first draft of a little known movie, Empire Strikes Back.
What? That's incredible.
Yeah. She died because she couldn't, so it was like Lucas asked her to write. She wrote the first draft, she turned it in, and then she died. So there was she was not. I don't remember if she died or she just wasn't. Her health was declining and she couldn't devote. But she wrote like a lot of things. Like the former draft stayed. Like the fact that Lucas Lucas, the father, like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader are they related? That was her draft, and a bunch of other like important things. And she's credited. Like enough of her draft made it that she's credited in the final film. But obviously, like a lot of things changed. But anyway, that's Lee Brackett. It was obviously Carpenter was a big science fiction fan, so there's absolutely, and also a Howard Hawks fan as well. He was, because The Thing was directed by Howard Hawks, I believe. The Thing.
Yeah, was it? Yeah.
Oh no, he was
person.
He was produced by Howard Hawks, but directed by someone else.
Person that directed
Yeah. Produced. He also wrote the screenplay. Howard
was Forbidden Planet in the first Halloween or the second Halloween?
The first Halloween, the first film that they watch is The Thing, the original The Thing, and they watch a space movie which I think was Forbidden Planet, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I
think it was Forbidden Planet.
So dropping all sorts of references. Yeah, John Carpenter is incredibly cinema.
Yeah, and he a big science fiction fan, big cinema fan from this era. So you added that note to Lee Brackett, which was sort of like one of the early female voices in science fiction, which were not many at that time, and also in Hollywood screenwriting as well. I think that was the case for both areas.
Okay, it's an incredible bit of lore drop there.
But anyway, we have reached sort of like the sort of like the climax, or not like the 30 minutes or so that are sort of like where Mike Myers does most of his harm, most of his attacks. And of course, it starts with Annie. And again, you could, like, if you treated him as a real person with motivations, if you wanted to kill Laurie, why doesn't he go straight there? But I think that's not the point. He goes to Annie, and we get this long, drawn-out, and I'm not saying that in a negative sense, but in a tension-building sense, of her having to go into all the weird, like, dark places, and he's just following around until she kind of decides to kill him. He kind of decides to kill her.
Yeah, tension building because Laurie's babysitting a boy named Tommy, and Tommy can see Michael Myers around the property, and he's constantly trying to alert Laurie, hey, the boogeyman's out there, and she never believes him. Yeah. Whereas we, the audience, can see him in the bushes.
It's curious that what he sees is exactly the same, in the same manner that Laurie had been seeing him all this time. The one difference is he calls him the boogeyman, and maybe that's what throws her off. But otherwise, he sees exactly what she was seeing up until she got into that house.
it's kind of earlier in the film he's being bullied by three boys, and they tell him the boogeyman's going to get him, and then later in the film he asks Laurie, hey, is the boogeyman real? What is the boogeyman? And this becomes a thread that the film picks up. She doesn't believe the child, thinks he's being childish, and this is again, not to victim blame, but it's kind of like you've got these girls who are just sort of stepping out into the world, they're realizing their sexuality, but they're not taking into consideration the threats that are around them. And there are like so many moments where Annie kind of ignores what's going on, like the dog goes missing. She's, the various things are being displaced around the house. It's kind of like, and like people aren't taking the repeated sightings of the strange man seriously enough. And it's like, as an adult, I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, girls, take this seriously, please take this seriously. But because they're still teenagers and they're still trying to figure out their place in life, they're not taking it seriously. So the tension's ratcheting up that way.
Yeah, but so there's a couple of things that I want to add to that. But first of all, I think it is curious that we see throughout that interaction, there are with Annie. There are many places that Mike Myers could have killed her, right? I mean, she gets stuck in a window at some point.
Yeah.
Like, there are many places, but it's curious that he decides to kill her right when he decides to kill her right when she decides to go pick up her boyfriend to have sex, like no other reason, because they talk about this. But with what you said, I want to qualify it with sort of like with the time, maybe even today, but especially at the time when this film was made, it was still taboo for women to express their sexuality so openly. There was still prevalent in much of the country and much of the world, maybe, that this idea that women should try to preserve their purity, for lack of a better term. So this kind of a scandalous idea. This would have been fairly scandalous, not a big way. I'm not saying people would have lost their minds, like if this was in the 50s or something. Obviously, after all the code had been, the 60s had happened, people had been liberated and all that, but there was still the idea, especially in sort of like middle class, moderate Americans, that, women were still expected to be careful and pure and not sort of like modest, exactly. Even if sex was okay, even if sex was acceptable, you were not supposed to be open about it, and you certainly were not supposed to enjoy it. I think that was sort of like the implicit expectation of many people, and I think the women in the film, because we never see men being aggressive in this film, and in the second one, we definitely see men more often than not being the initiators. Like, there is a throwaway line that when the three girls are talking, and one of them was talking about her boyfriend, he was all over me like the other night, or something like that.
He dragged me into the locker room.
Exactly like that. So they definitely have this idea where, sort of like in this patriarchal environment that these young women find themselves, they are torn between men seeing them as sexual objects, but also at the same time, men expecting them to be modest and maintain their purity. There's almost this kind of like Madonna whore type of like duality where these women are put in an impossible situation, because on the one side, part of the masculine dominant culture, the patriarchy, as I keep saying it, is one side of it is their boyfriends who sort of like expect them to be sexually active, and the other side is Michael Myers, who punishes them for being sexually active. And I think Michael Myers, aside from the violence, does represent the more conservative or modest, or whatever name you want to put it, the more puritanical sort of like element of sort of like the type of masculine dominant society that existed in the 70s when the film was made. And this would have been very much at the time of the audience. Like you said, you used the term voyeuristic, and I would add to that judgmental that this film takes, because the audience would have judged these women. The audience would have judged these girls for being so promiscuous and so openly promiscuous at the time, even though if you took a survey, obviously nobody would approve of the murders, But before the murders happen, most of the audience said, "Well, they're not being careful. They're not supposed to act like that. Ladies shouldn't act like that." Maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but I do think when I mentioned at the beginning this satirical element, I do think that this is what Carpenter and Deborah Hill are sort of like touching. And I think they tried to do this in the second film, even though the second film is a lot more gratuitous in its violence. I think sort of like the symbolism is more or less the same. It's essentially identical.
Yeah. And again, it's kind of like you don't want to be victim blaming, but the way the murders play out, it does seem like that. Like Laurie, who's the most chaste, she's the final girl, she's the survivor, she's the one that doesn't have sex. That's the big rule that the characters in Scream discuss. Don't say you'll be right back, don't go in the basement, don't have sex if you want to survive a horror movie.
She's also not entirely pure, because we see her smoking weed in the car with Annie.
And she's about to go to the prom, which kind of initiates, she's been set up. Yeah. So that's kind of like initiates Michael Myers' attack.
Yeah. And she wants to find a date. I find this unrealistic when she says, "Oh, I'm too smart for guys," or like, "Guys don't like me because I'm too smart," which she's a beautiful woman after all. But she wants to find a date. I think the film tries to make, sorry to interrupt you, but the film tries to make the case that she can't, despite her best efforts.
Yeah, I just read her as shy and studious, so she's not going to put herself out there.
I mean, that could be it, but yeah, anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, she is like, you obviously, like when Annie sets her against the will with like Bird guy, who also dies in the second film in the most unceremonious way possible.
Just to go back to Annie, she's the first one to die, and she dies in her car, which is a callback to when Michael Myers drives by in the brown car and Annie shouts out "Speed kills" and he stops the car. I thought that was like a really interesting callback.
Sure, yeah. And I think he strangles and then stabs her or something like that.
Yeah, he strangled her from the backseat.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he's waiting in the backseat. But yeah, and then like,
which is like,
go ahead.
A really good sequence, because you see her, she's gotten rid of the girl by handing her over to Laurie, and then she goes back to her car and she's like, "Oh, I forgot the keys." She goes into the house. You see this whole sequence where she's looking for the keys, and she goes back to the car. She opens the door and she's like, "Oh, this is strange." And then she's in the car and there's condensation on the windows. That's like a really great sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have like more or less the same thing happening with Linda. Like Linda arrives, but it's not until she has sex with her boyfriend that the whole thing happens, and he kills them both, I guess, in this instance. So it's not just the women, but it feels almost like the boyfriend was like in the wrong place at the wrong time or something like that.
Yeah, I think like the depictions of sort of female nudity and sex in this film really chaste compared to like loads of slasher movies that will come, including Halloween 2, where there's a lot more TNA on offer. Yeah,
Halloween 2 is a little bit more explicit, and of course, as like I said, the 70s was still a fairly conservative time in America. Like, yes, the 60s has happened, liberation. The code was removed. Now we had the rating system in Hollywood, so you could show nudity, but it was nowhere near. Like if you think one of the later Hitchcock movies, Frenzy, which is also sort of like a proto slasher film. That was like, he considered that to be extremely scandalous. By modern standards, it's nothing.
Tame.
So like Hitchcock at his most unhinged is like pretty much nothing. So, which I think I actually think Friends is a very underrated film by Hitchcock. But anyway, so like this is like partly is because of the standards of the time, and I think partly is because I think Carpenter was genuinely interested in the ideas, whereas I think later people, producers realized why people go to these films for the nudity and the violence. Which is something that Scream satirizes, of course. Whether effectively or not, that remains to be determined, but it's kind of part of like the point.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Scream essentially turned into the thing. I mean, it's like 6 or 7 films in the franchise, which I've seen them all. I don't know why, but I've seen them all.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I think it's always been with someone else. So I've never gotten to see them with on my own. But whenever someone has said, "Hey, let's watch the latest Scream," I said, "Fine." But Scream, I said, eventually becomes the thing that it satirized in the first couple of movies that it released.
And yeah, just I mentioned earlier, like I was getting angry in some of these scenes. Like Laurie sees her friends go into the murder house essentially because they're all getting killed there, and she knows something's wrong, so she gets the kids to stay put, and she goes over the street to the house. And again, it's great at building tension because you're seeing her go through this environment that we know Michael Myers has sort of corrupted with his murderous antics. And you get the reveal of the bodies. Where I started getting mad was that Laurie ran back to the house with the kids.
Yeah. It's also,
but there was
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying, this is also where she finds out that the phone line has been cut, and I'm like, how does he know how to do that? But whatever, it's not a big deal.
But there was a moment that stood out in this sort of sequence where she's screaming, she's out on the street, she's banging on the neighbour's door.
Yeah, and who's this crazy lady?
Actually, yeah, they close the windows, turn off the lights. Like Laurie's a trick-or-treater, not a woman in distress. It's kind of like in the suburbs. Yeah, that's when I felt like she was totally alone in the suburbs, like the space where anything could hide. Became really, really terrifying.
Yeah, yeah. And there's this idea that, I mean, this again, Lynch explores this, even like something like Edward Scissorhands like explores the same thing. This idea that the suburbs are never what they seem. This like faux friendliness is just like a front for like what's inherently an uncaring world that we all live in, and that's partially in this movie as well.
I've heard an interview of I listened to an interview of John Carpenter. We talked about his time growing up in the South, and he was like, he knew some people he who like they seem normal, but then for fun they would go out to the black part of town and shoot houses, even if there were people inside, and that the women had this southern charm and they would smile at you, but they actually hated your guts. So it's kind of like his experiences growing up in the South, where he saw people bean horrible to each other, evil. Like this is filtered into Halloween.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I can imagine. I mean, that definitely happened. Like that was a thing. I think in Kentucky, right? That's where he was growing up. Grown up. Anyway, hopefully, I don't know. Maybe he'll make another movie. Maybe he'll make a movie about that.
Yeah, he was a kid from out of state. New York, was it New York State? Somewhere like that.
He was born there, but he moved to Kentucky.
Yeah, when he was something like 5, and his father took up a position at university. But you get this, to jump back into the film, you get the funny sequence where Donald Pleasance turns around and spots the car that Michael Myers has been driving after his 7-hour stakeout of Michael Myers' old house.
Which is like the car was across the street, like a few meters ahead. But I guess he was so focused on the house. I guess I can excuse that. How that leads him to the house that Laurie babysits, I have no idea. But oh well.
I think I wanted to ask you, Laurie's in a classroom. This whole thing with Laurie is set off because on Halloween Day, she drops off the key at the house, and then Michael Myers starts following her. She goes to the school, Michael Myers watching her, she's kind of aware that he's watching her. And at that same time, the teacher's giving a lesson on fate, and everything in this film seems like the characters were fated to interact at these moments. Like Donald Pleasance was fated to walk down the street just as Laurie was running away from Michael Myers. What did you make of this aspect of the film? Was it fate? Was it would Laurie have been targeted, or maybe the 3 boys who visit Michael Myers' house later, would they have been targeted? What do you think?
I mean, I think so. Well, again, I mean, this interpretation is colored by the larger interpretation that I have about how this movie tackles on the social issues that it does, which I already talked about. And I think fate is, again, sort of like the deterministic aspect of the society that we live in. Again, this society targets women more than it targets men. And I think that's why Michael Myers was fated to target Laurie and her friends more than he was fated to target anybody else. And I think the book that they discuss is about sort of like the relationship between a man and a woman. I didn't catch that very well. At first I thought it was like a Greek tragedy because that's what fate comes along, but it sounded like a more modern. I guess I could have looked up what book they were talking about, if it was a real book or not. But that's how I interpreted fate in this one, as not like a supernatural concept, but this, again, yet another analogy for sort of like the social order that they exist, that they live. And social orders are often criticized for being deterministic. That's the point. That's why people don't like them. And I think how the women exist in this social order, socioeconomic order, whatever you want to call it, is something that the film comments on at the very least. And I kind of interpreted fate as just part of that. But you could also make a general argument about the nature of fate or the nature of chance or the nature of coincidence. I didn't read the movie along those lines, but I think that's certainly an interpretation that could be made.
Yeah, I wish I'd done more research, but I kind of like what you're getting at. And it does play into the sort of wider social issues that we were talking about earlier and reinforces them. I'm definitely going to have... I did note down that classroom scene, and I wish I'd done a bit more research to find out what book they were talking about.
Yeah, it's a fictional test just for the movie. It's not based on a real test. So it's purely something that I think Carpenter wanted to kind of bring the idea of fate to the audiences, and how you interpret that, I guess, depends on how you interpret the rest of the movie.
It just happened to be Laurie's bad luck that she was the one that put the key on the porch, and Mike Myers was in the house at the time.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you extend to the second movie, then it was just the fact that she was related to him.
Yeah.
None of that mattered.
They're fated to battle across time and space.
Yeah. Does she kill him in the recent movies? How do those end? Do they partner up?
I haven't watched the recent movies because, like, they've got bad reputations. Like,
oh,
bad
they do?
reviews.
Okay, I have no idea. I've not followed any of the news about that.
I'm not, like, I've watched a lot of slasher films, but I'm not the biggest slasher film fan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
So but yeah, just like these nighttime scenes, the fact that Michael Myers got a white mask, like you've got great play of light on that mask, revealing him in the shadows. And to go back to sort of Mike recreating his childhood, like he's got Annie, I think it's Annie on the bed with the Judith Myers, his sister's gravestone above her, and she's like splayed out in sort of like a crucifixion pose. It's a really interesting imagery in this sequence.
Like the whole sequence of Laurie, the final confrontation between Laurie and Mike. What did you think of that?
Yeah, again, I was getting mad. Like, I was mad that she led Michael Myers to the house with the children. I was like, just run down the street, go towards the sheriff's office. And every time she managed to down Michael, she wouldn't go in for the kill. It's kind of like he's lying down, chop him up, do something. But then I kind of reminded myself that she's a teenage girl. She's not in the right state of mind. She's panicking. And it allowed, you've got the rise in tension and like the explosive action and the drop in tension, so it allows the audience to catch their breath, ready for the next sort of scare when Michael Myers sits up or pops up out of nowhere and terrorizes Laurie. And like you talked about earlier in the film, that bit where he's in the back of the shot and you can see him sit up after she thinks she's killed him. Just really great tension building.
I would argue not all her decisions are rational. Like, you could argue that obviously she can't, there's a killer right across the street. She can't leave the children, like, alone.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So there's that. And also, maybe she is thinking this, maybe not, but she would not be able to outrun Michael Myers. So I think at that moment, whether true or not, it's reasonable for her to think that she would be safer locked in the house versus running him on an open street when nobody would open the door to her. I mean, she only tried one house, so maybe she could have tried a few more, but also at the same time, I don't think her actions are entirely irrational.
Yeah. I just reminded myself that like she's a teenage girl, she's like scared out of her mind.
That too.
And like I have the benefit of watching it on my laptop at home.
Sure.
So Texas Chainsaw Massacre has this really great extended sequence where the girl's running from Leatherface and she's screaming at the same time, and every time I watch that I just feel exhausted. I'm like, I'm no longer young, I couldn't do that. That girl's got legs. So like, Laurie needs to train, she needs to do her cardio so she can outrun Mike.
Lastly, the doctor shows up. And right as she's run out of ideas, she's run out of options. She stabbed him and he's not dead. And now he's about to choke her or something like that. And then finally the doctor shows up and shoots her. Well, before that we have like this one maybe important scene, maybe not, where she kind of like defends herself by removing his mask, and he immediately stops and covers his face again. So I'm not sure what exactly to make of that it's important to him that his face is not visible. And I think maybe it's that, again, the idea that Carpenter wants to emphasize that he's not a real person, he's a symbol, that it doesn't matter who he is. And in fact, the actor who plays him when he has his face off is not the same actor who plays him when he has the mask on. And then the doctor shoots him.
What's it in the screenplay? He's referred to as the Shape, and Dr. Loomis doesn't refer to Michael Myers as him, but it in the early conversation with the nurse. It's just kind of like he doesn't have any features. He's just masculine presence, this evil energy, malign male presence.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's definitely a big part of the film.
Which keys into the sort of like viewing, femininity. It's harder to dismiss. It's easier to dismiss an individual.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. And of course, even after Loomis shoots him, he doesn't die. He's disappeared, and the film ends with his breath. With
it's the different shots of the suburbs, the houses and suburbs.
The stairs and all that. It was sort of like line where like she says he is the boogeyman or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, another point that emphasized that he's not a real person. But again, I think the intention was, jumping to the second film, which we're not going to talk about in detail, but just want to say, I think the intention was at the end of the second film that he is dead.
Yeah.
I think the intention was that the saga of Mike Myers is over, like in the second film, and like Carpenter wanted to move on to other things, but I don't know what. I think the ending of the first film is that Mike Myers, or what he represents, will never go away. There will always be in the air, in the environment, in this kind of like safe suburban environment. This idea will always exist. It's not just it doesn't die with one person.
No, it's this thing that's always lingering at the edge of civility.
Absolutely.
You could go to the suburbs, but
pretty much, yeah. That's exactly, I think, what the ending of the first film is meant to represent. It's meant to show us.
Which is why you got those point of view shots and the breathing, like he's still out there.
And it's us. Like every time there is a voyeuristic point of view shot, like it's meant to be, that's what Hitchcock used, point of view shots. That's what Peeping Tom does. That's what, like, I think Carpenter does. Like it's a cliche way to do that. It's the beginning. It's like, this is us. This is part of us, at least. I don't not accusing anyone specifically, but I think it's showing that this is you. This is the society that you live in, and
Song Kang-ho stares at you from the screen.
Exactly.
I know you're a serial killer.
Exactly, yeah. Well, in that case, he was staring at one person in particular, maybe. But in this one, I think the audience is viewing and breathing in the quiet theater, and he's saying this is part of us. This is all of us, and we have to look back and reevaluate our moral priorities. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, so any closing thoughts on the film, Jason?
Really efficient filmmaking, like John Carpenter, great visual storyteller because every shot, one shot feeds into another perfectly. The story's really easy to get into, and that's what makes it so suspenseful because we see our everyday reality. Like, he makes a virtue of working on a budget. Our everyday reality is reflected on screen, and he's asking us big questions about how we interact with each other and the morality or moral questions about like a good and evil out there in the world and what people are capable of. And yeah, it's a perfect package, I think.
What score out of 10 would you give to the sequel to Halloween 2 compared to the first one? So let's assume for the sake of argument that the first one is 10 out of 10. With that in mind, what would you give the second one, the sequel?
I would give it sort of like a 6 out of 10. I don't think it has any of the sort of intellectual ambitions. And it's much more schlockier, and it has a nasty sadism to it, which leaves a bad taste in the mouth compared to the first one. I would also say that the character of Laurie is very hard to follow because, you know, she's drugged up and she's struggling to move around the hospital. The side characters aren't that interesting, and we get so much of them.
Yeah, and we have like this kind of a very Grey's Anatomy hospital where it's just everybody's having sex with everybody. Yeah, it's not as interesting. I would say 5 for me. 5 out of 10 is just. I think it tries to cover some of the same ground, right? Like it tries to make the same point. After all, it has the same writers. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about, like, the more you explore Mike Myers' background, the more you humanize him, which I think like defeats kind of the purpose of why he exists in the first place. Even though here they only like him being his sisters, like I don't think that's a huge thing. But don't they bring Donald Pleasance back in some of the sequels?
I think that's right.
How does he survive?
Yeah, because spoiler alert, at the end of the second one, he blows himself up and Michael Myers. We'll have to watch the sequels to find out. Maybe there's exposition at the beginning.
Okay, I was wondering if you knew or something.
Just after I lit the place up, I leaped through a window, or I hid in a cupboard, or in a refrigerator, like Indiana Jones and the nuclear testing. Yeah,
because he's in quite a few of them. He's not in the third, obviously, but I think he's in the fourth. The Return of Michael Myers, and he's in the fifth. So he is in the fourth, The Return of Michael Myers, and he is in the fifth, The Revenge of Michael Myers. And he is is he in the sixth? He is in the sixth as well, The Curse of Michael Myers. So he is in quite a few of them. He comes back, so I don't know what the deal is. Anyway, doesn't matter.
He's enjoyable to watch. Donald Pleasance got this great gravitas.
I don't necessarily mind it, but I do wonder if it's maybe a different character. But let's see. No, he's Dr. Sam Loomis.
Hey, we need the exposition, John. So he's the perfect. Well,
reading the Wikipedia, like of the Halloween 4, which is where he returns, the Return of Michael Myers, and where Donald Pleasance returns. It says on the beginning of the plot summary, on October 30th, 1988, Michael Myers, who has been comatose for 10 years since the explosion at the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, is being transferred from Richmond Federal Sanitarium to Smiths Grove Sanitarium. During the transfer, when Michael overhears that he has a niece living in Haddonfield, he awakens, kills the ambulance personnel, and heads back to his hometown to kill her. Dr. Loomis, who also survived the explosion, learns of Michael's escape and gives chase once again. So it doesn't matter, he survived. So it's essentially the same plot. Loomis after Michael.
Yeah. I did hear that Vincent Price and Christopher Lee were both offered the role of of Dr. Loomis. Did you hear that?
I did not do much research about the background, the making of this, so I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. There is, so talking about sort of like these later Halloween sequels, so that came out like in the late 80s, early 90s. What I did is I did read about, including Halloween 3 actually, that were terribly received at the time, but have been reevaluated more positively since then. I don't know what that means. You said you watched Halloween 3 and you didn't like it, so I'm not sure. I don't know if it's like a reevaluation like the Star Wars prequels have been reevaluated. But that's what I like. I read that they've been more positively received in recent years compared to the time when they came out, which were obviously like almost panned by everyone. But
yeah, it's critical reappraisal.
So who knows? I thought Halloween 4, I've heard a few people talk about. So I don't know. I don't know what that means, but it's and I think as the sequels progress, they make this sort of like supernatural ability of Mike Myers a little bit more explicit. Obviously in the first film, maybe in the second one, there is an implicit, like how he doesn't die after Loomis shots him, but there could be ambiguity there, like maybe he missed, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the first film.
The sheriff does question Dr. Loomis's aim.
Yeah. So that's possible, but I feel like in the later films, from what I've been reading, is they make it more explicit that he is he's has at least some supernatural about. I don't know.
He's connected to a cult. But yeah, according to Wikipedia, the role of Dr. Loomis was offered to Peter Cushing, and Cushing's agent rejected the offer due to the low salary, so Christopher Lee was also approached, but Christopher Lee turned it down, and Christopher Lee would later tell Carpenter that declining the role was the biggest mistake he made during his career.
But I mean, Christopher Lee was no stranger to low-budget movies.
It doesn't give a reason as to why he turned it down.
Yeah.
So.
Was Donald Pleasance at a bad time in his career around this time?
Oh, I don't
was
know.
he? I could be completely wrong about this. I don't know why at one point I had the impression that he was like sort of like alcoholic or something like that. Or no, maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
He was in the film Wake in Fright, which is about alcoholics in Australia.
Yeah, like that, but that was 71, so that was like 6 or 7 years before this. No, I mean, I think I'm thinking of someone else. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I guess Donald Pleasance was like, fine, I'll take it. Anyway, I think this episode has going pretty long, so let's close the discussion here. You said your closing thoughts. I will echo them pretty much. I thought the first movie was with some minor trifle things here and there. I thought the first film was excellent at what it was trying to do. The sequel, I think, was a huge drop, and then I don't think I will ever bother with the rest. Okay, so that concludes discussion for the episode. It's our first episode in a while because we kind of took a longer than usual break. Jason, would you like to tell us what you've been up to, what exciting things you've been doing since last time that we recorded an episode?
Right, so August and September I was in Japan. It's like the first time in 5 years that I traveled to the country, and I was at Osaka Asian Film Festival for the Expo edition. And I got to interview a selection of directors and screenwriters, cinematographers, and actors. And I'm in the process of transcribing those interviews. I've got the audio files, and I was hoping to get them put on the podcast. I've just had trouble focusing down various things because I've got so much going on in my personal life, with regards to like getting back into like, work at my regular job and like the trailer posts I keep putting out because last week there was something like 23 new films. And, like slowly getting there. The last 2 interviews I did with Milk Lady and Some Like It Cold, sort of satire on misogyny in the workplace, and Zom Rom-Com, respectively. I hope to get a Flames of a Flower interview and review out before the film's released next week in Japan, which is going to be like the weekend of October 31st at the time of recording. While I was in Japan, I went to numerous film places like the National Film Archives to see a Yoshimitsu Morita exhibition, Toy Film Museum in Kyoto to see old-fashioned cameras like paper film. Did you know paper was used as film, John? Not just celluloid, but actual paper?
No. I mean, what kind of paper? It must have been a special kind of paper.
It must have been a special kind of paper. I don't remember, but I went to a museum in Kyoto which had paper film and camera that played it. What else? I went to Yoji Yamada Museum and the Torasan Museum. There are Torasan films, like 48 of them in the series. I had no idea there were so many. Going out with my partner, who's a stop motion animator, and going to various exhibitions about stop motion animation, just had a really good time in Japan, and I hope to get some of that out onto the podcast with the interviews that I did at Osaka Asian Film Festival. So apologies for the lateness, and please stick with us. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, at some point we'll get those out, but it's definitely no rush. As for me, I've been doing nothing as exciting. Just I watched a lot of movies, which I don't know if what I mentioned or not. I've read a lot of books. I read Neuromancer. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not. And the sequel, I read a bunch of other books.
Neuromancer is being adapted into a TV show, is it?
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't followed anything about that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's a very popular book. But anyway, the stuff that I do usually. I haven't done anything excited. I have considered taking a trip to Japan, but I don't know. I have things here like a cat and other things that I don't know what's the best way to handle. So it's going to be a difficult thing to arrange. But if I could, I would like to. I mean, I'm sure at some point I will, but. Perhaps I think this year I might take a shorter trip somewhere more close where I don't have to leave my cat for such an extended amount of time. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
There is no confirmed release date for Neuromancer TV series on Apple TV Plus, but is anticipated to be released in 2026.
Interesting.
And on the issue of cats, the Korean film Please Take Care of My Cat.
Yeah. Oh, there's a new movie by Park Chan-wook.
Ah, yes, it was at Venice, wasn't it?
Yeah. What's the name of it? Looked interesting from the trailer.
Was it The Only Possible Choice or something like that? It's kind of like a guy wiping out his rivals.
No other choice.
No other choice. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it looked like. Looked like a quiet suburban man wiping out people. I don't know. But we'll see. At the end of the year, we'll take stock of everything we've seen. I'm sure you'll have a lot of interesting things that you saw at festivals.
Hopefully, yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. All right. I think this episode has dragged on for longer than it should. Let's see. Any closing thoughts, Jason, about this, the movie, the generally things that we talked about?
It was actually good to revisit Halloween. I've got a new appreciation based on just getting older. I think I would urge people to watch Black Christmas, which deals with similar themes. It was made in 1974, and I think there's a lot to the text that would really make viewers think, but it's also a very scary film as well.
Is there like a 2025 horror film that you saw that really impressed you?
In terms of horror films from 2025, I watched Some Like It Cold, a Korean rom-com, which is really charming, low-key, sort of road movie where a lady and a zombie kind of go on a journey and fall in love. And it's got a great sort of satire of sort of Korea's capitalist society. I like the films of Mai Nakanishi. Probably which I saw in Japan. I watched Weapons in the cinema with my mother.
That's what I was thinking of. I haven't seen it, but that's the one that I've been hearing a lot about, that everybody's kind of raving.
It's not as good as Barbarian. I think it goes a bit long. It's a Rashomon type story where you're seeing events from different perspectives. The characters are all flawed and they're interesting, but some characters don't feel as necessary as others. And by the time I got to the final perspective, I was kind of just not as invested. But it has an insane finale, just like Barbarian. And actually it's kind of like, we talked about how Halloween sparked a tidal wave of imitators in the slasher film genre. I'm glad the director, I think his name's Ryan Kraggers, he's making somewhat original movies, but totally different, totally hard to sort of like guess where it's going, and you're not seeing archetypes and you're not bored by the action.
Yeah, so I think some candidates because it is Halloween, so that's why that's because I'm not a horror guy, like I've made it painfully clear many times in this podcast. But some candidates that I've kind of even I could not help but ignore was, like I said, Weapons. I haven't seen, but it made a lot of news. 28 years later. That was highly anticipated from what I've seen people describe. And I'm probably going to watch all of these before the year's end, because that's what I usually do at the end of the year. I catch up with all the movies that came out. But 28 years later, I don't know if you had a chance to see that one.
I haven't had the chance to see it, but I heard it's doing interesting things as well.
Okay. All I've read seems to be either neutral or negative, but we'll see.
Okay.
That one from Ryan Coogler about music.
Oh, Sinners.
Which I saw that one, but I don't know if I would describe that as horror. I mean, it has horror elements, like the whole zombie thing, but I don't know, like more of an action thriller. It wasn't bad. Yeah. It wasn't bad.
I think Barbarian is on Netflix. You should try that one out as well.
I think you've already mentioned, but that's not from this year.
No. It's like during COVID.
Yeah, no, I was talking about like 2025 movies.
Mm.
And that's it. Yeah. I don't know if I've heard of anything else. There is supposed to be like a sequel to the movie It Follows, but I don't know if that's coming out this year or not.
Oh, no idea.
Anyway, we've lingered enough on this topic. So thank you for coming back to do this Halloween episode, Jason.
Couldn't pass up the chance of doing a Halloween episode.
Yeah, of course, that's true. And like I already mentioned my thoughts on Halloween. I really enjoyed it. I hadn't seen it. I had seen on TV parts of the first Halloween movie, but I'd never seen it from start to finish, like in one go in good quality. So I watched both the first and the second one. And even though the second one was a sharp decreasing quality, I'm kind of glad I watched it. So it's not terrible. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Heroic Purgatory, for this special of Heroic Purgatory. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, let us know at heroic-purgatory.com or on Blue Sky at Heroic Purgatory, I think our handle is. Otherwise, we will see you next time.